Hi, I'm Tim. He's Brian. Welcome back to Watchbox, and thank you for logging on. We are coming to you with a socially distant from the vault. Today, the theme is complications, and we've got 8 incredible examples. I want to remind you, tmosso@thewatchbox.com, your direct service email line, and we are in a buying mode. The best prices since we started buying watches as Watchbox 3 years ago. Sell your watch, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Brian, welcome back.
Thank you. This is the first time we've done a show in a long time.
As a fact, show me what you got.
Okay, so I wanted to come out of the gate strong. This is our first show. You told me complications, so I went with 3 different Patek Philippe complications and 1 Breitling that's actually a recent acquisition of mine. So why don't we talk about, we'll start with the Breitling, and then we can move on to the other. So here we have an early Breitling Aerospace in titanium. I'd always loved the aerospace. Really the juxtaposition of having this digital watch with an analog display and also like super useful in terms of the complications. And it's always was sporty, it's super light. I've always liked and enjoy wearing super light thin watches on the wrist. And the fact that this was just an ultra complicated watch because it's digital in this compact size, I thought was always unique and interesting. And I thought that Breitling did a really good job of having a quartz digital watch in a timepiece that seems more traditional in terms of styling and appearance. So I pulled the trigger. Pretty recently. Again, these aren't overly expensive, but I'd always wanted one, particularly one of the older ones with the rouleau bracelets, which, if you show the camera, are super thin, very flexible. They almost look like a president bracelet in appearance. But I just always thought that it had a unique bracelet feel on the wrist, and I thought, why not? Perfect watch for summer.
It is a really cool piece. First, the size of it. This is a Generation 1 aerospace, which means you have a tritium dial with real tritium fade, a 40mm media blasted titanium case, super slim profile built around the Breitling 56, and then you've got multiple functions. You've got a perpetual calendar. You've got a countdown timer, you've got an alarm, you've got a chronograph, and you have the analog digidial that has become the signature of the aerospace. This is the modern day pilot's watch, a real pilot's watch, something that could act as a primary, not a backup. And as you can see, it does feature a dive watch-like unidirectional bezel and 100-meter water resistance, so this isn't just for aviators. This one has water wings. Want to do a wrist shot with it?
No, but why don't we can do a quick wrist check with what we have on.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so today I am wearing, and I'll give it to you, a watch that I have brought on in the past. I actually did sort of like a heritage-inspired show with Mike Manjos this morning, so I decided to wear this piece. So this is a 1964 Heuer re-edition, a true tribute to the original watch that came out in 1964. It features almost a copper-like dial, Heuer there on the dial itself. The case is truly pretty much exactly what had come on the watch in the past. This watch came out, I think, in 1996. Is that right, Tim?
That's correct.
So it came out in 1996 along with a bunch of other reeditions. I purchased this watch from the original owner. It was in new old stock condition. And again, I have a thing for salmon dials. And, this watch sort of just fit the bill of something that was unique, esoteric, a brand that we carry. And the only thing that I want to change desperately is the strap that's on it. I can't stand the crocodile. I just haven't found something that fits my fancy yet.
I'm thinking black with a rose gold contrasting stitch.
That could be very cool.
So this watch is cool for a bunch of reasons, but maybe the most interesting is that this was a landmark watch. One of the first uses of plain Heuer in the Tag Heuer era. They actually tripled up and quadrupled up dial, crown, caseback, and buckle. It was the first sign that the company was aware that Heuer carried more currency than Tag. Also important, in '96, this watch came out to celebrate the IPO of Tag Heuer, which was shepherded along by, among others, Georges Kern. So this was a milestone watch in more ways than one. Inside, a moonwatch caliber.
There goes the mask.
Well, nope, that's why I'm there with the save. I'm quick with these things. Now, I want to focus on a watch that for me represents probably the coolest watch of 2018. I thought it deserved more attention at the GPHG, but this is the IWC Tribute to Paul Weber, reference 505003, 500 pieces in steel. It's a little bit like a Portofino, though technically it's not part of any of the IWC model families. The watch has a 12-layer hand-finished blue lacquer dial and a digital time display inspired by the Ulysse Paul Weber pocket watches of IWC's late 19th century production, which were digital time displays. Now we're going to see the whole thing just like that. Digital hours, digital minutes, glorious hand-finished dial designed to evoke the enamel of vintage IWC pocket watches. Now it's big, that's the thing. Stainless steel, 45 millimeters, but you need to think of it almost like a wire lug radiomere, as it's relatively short across the wrist. The lugs are basically just there to drape the strap, so it doesn't feel like a giant watch, nor does it wear that way.
Now it is a blue lacquer, correct?
It is a blue lacquer and 12 steps, each one of which is finished by hand. Some of the layers are blue, some of the layers are clear, and they're superimposed to create a luster and a depth that is much like enamel. Now this movement is exclusive to this model and the pocket watch equivalent. Caliber 94-200, 2 mainspring barrels, powering different trains, and there is a pulse system at the center that couples the seconds to the minutes so that the seconds hand will cause the minutes display to jump in sync. It's big, it's sized for the watch, and you can see it as a rose gold medallion marking 150 years of IWC in 2018. This was the watch of the year, in my opinion. It's a glorious piece, if anything, underrated. And I think we should do prices. We're asking $25,000 for this watch, and frankly, that's a little bit above what it sold for in 2018. It's that hot. As a dealer, we were allocated one. It sold before I could even shoot a video of it.
No, and I would say that 2018 obviously was a big anniversary year, and the entire line, every single watch that came out that year either featured the blue lacquer dial or a white lacquer dial, all in limited editions. It was also, we don't have it on the table, the first year that the Portuguese chronograph, which is a mainstay of their collection, came out featuring a sapphire crystal case back.
Yep, and a manufacture movement, which
Correct.
is 2 big steps forward for them. The new 3716, and then slowly proliferating out throughout the rest of the Portuguese chronograph line. Now you've got a chrono in your own right. Show me what you got from Patek.
Okay, so here we have, I'll have you pick it up. Here we have a 5204/1 rose. So it's a complications show. I figure why not bring one of the granddaddy of their complications. So you've got a split second perpetual calendar chrono. Now this is Patek Philippe's first in-house perpetual calendar chronograph split second. The prior variation, the 5004, was the Lemania-based movement. This is now in-house. And again, what a watch. This is exceptionally rare in rose gold on the bracelet with a black dial. And I thought, this particular movement is quintessential Patek, and it's one of the movements that they're known for, one of the complications that they've always been known for, and I felt that, this is the perfect kind of watch to bring on a show like this.
The springs, the pincers, and the secondary bridge for the retrograde system make this the world's most beautiful and expensive hairball. The superimposed tensioning springs for this mechanism create an intricate forest-like canopy of steel, brushed and beveled. This is as good as it gets. Now, fundamentally, it's based on the 29535, but you can see with the additional retropont trigger, and I'll show you that mechanism in action, it's coaxial with the crown with a second column wheel. As it operates, you're able to see the pincers at center grasping and releasing the split-second mechanism for the secondary hand. It's important to note, this model, which is the 52041R, came out in 2016, so it's still quite rare, special, and exotic. The combination of the perpetual calendar split second with the full bracelet makes this one almost too rich a dessert, but it's a very wearable watch. It's not huge, it's not bulky. There's nothing untoward or encumbering about it on the wrist. It feels like, I would say, a stitch of silk in rose gold on the wrist. It feels more like a fabric band than a metal bracelet.
Yeah, one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten from this reference, as well as when I would compare it to the 5004, is the size and scope of the watch on the wrist. I think that this fits much more nicely on the wrist. The 5004 for me is much more in line with the size of a 3970, except it's much thicker. So it sits almost like a turtle on top of the wrist, and for me it wasn't a comfortable fit.
And for those of you who believe that a watch should be practical, check it out, a loomed dial. I love this watch. It's a bit glam for me. It's a bit more Miami than Philadelphia, but I'm definitely into it. All right. Okay, now I'm going to go minimalist and maximalist at the same time with possibly the most discreet monster complication you have ever seen. This is a model based on a movement jointly created by Dominique Renaud, Julio Papi, and Christophe Claret in the late 80s. A minute repeater with grand faux enamel white dial. This is the Ulysse Nardin Repetition Minute Émal Grand Faux, 38.5 millimeters in red gold. This is proof that every Ulysse Nardin watch doesn't need to look like a Russian oligarch's Pez dispenser. I adore this thing. That's why you pay me, Brian. That's why you pay me. On the wrist, it's an absolute monster. Anyone can wear this watch. Tiny wrist, taste for traditional sizes, male, female. This is the brass ring in red gold. I'll also mention it's not thick. For what you get, it is a remarkably discreet watch, a secret between you and your timepiece. Now, let's take a quick look at that dial. You could see that the Grand Faux enamel dial, and this is back when Donze Cadran was not owned by Ulysse Nardin, but created on a gold base, immaculate, rich, lustrous, bottomless, and immune to oxidation or tarnish. Now the caseback. That collaboration between Renaud and Papi in their pre-AP days and Christophe Claret is glorious. Let me get close. Andrew's doing a great job with the camera there. But this is caliber 71. This is true hand finishing at the highest level, as Renaud and Papi would have pretty much built and finished this movement for Ulysse Nardin. Manual wind, 18K beat rate, overcoil hairspring. You could see the mirrored anglage on the finger-style bridges leading to the escapement. And then you could see the black polished strikers for the minute repeater. And I'm going to fire it up and we're going to hear it right now.
This watch is fantastic. You don't see enough enamel dials these days.
Boom, 1259 on the nose.
Wait till we compare it to the Patek that's on the table.
Yep, but for $57,000, you're going to get into a minute repeater a whole lot easier than with the Patek. I'm just saying. Okay, let's talk about the Patek.
Okay, here we go. So here we have the 5216. They've since come out with a more recent iteration of the watch where they changed the dial. But you have a minute repeater, perpetual calendar tourbillon, retrograde perpetual. I think it's a cathedral gong minute repeater, correct?
I'm not sure that this one is cathedral. I think it's conventional, single circumferential.
Okay.
But it sounds like it. Compared to the UN, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, no, so the watch is absolutely exceptional, and I would say that this is one of the apexes of what Patek Philippe is producing today.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about this watch is it didn't last that long. Of course, it succeeded the well-known 5016, but at 39.5 millimeters, it's a bigger watch. Now, here's the thing. This model, as you see it here in platinum, came out in 2013, so it was made 13, 14, 15, 16 before it was superseded by the 5316.
Which now has a black enamel dial.
And I would say, at most, maybe 12 of these are made a year, meaning that you're talking about dozens, not hundreds of these in existence. Now, let's take a look at the case back. This is pornographic. Viewer discretion is advised. As you can see, the best of everything. Take a quick look. Not only, and I'm going to fire it up here, I'm going to start winding the watch because, frankly, I'm embarrassed that I presented you a tourbillon stationary. Now Andrew's going to focus in on the case back, and you can see that it features a black polished full bridge for the balance that's been skeletonized with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 interior angles. There's another one at center, and then you have a 14-karat gold hand-finished third wheel in the drivetrain that by itself takes 9 to 11 hours to hand finish. It is beautifully mirror polished and beveled, and that's just one part. Now the watch, of course, isn't just a perpetual calendar. It's a perpetual calendar with a retrograde date. And, as is Patek's practice, the tourbillon is on the back to protect the lubricant from degradation in the face of UV. So Patek is both discreet and technically competent in its positioning of the tourbillon. Let's hear the minute repeater, because that is the centerpiece of the watch. If you want to impress your friends with your minute repeater, set it to 1259. I have a good record of hitting the mark, but if you set it just a little bit too far, you get one dong from 1 o'clock.
They do minute repeaters the best.
That's not even the cathedral gong. It sounds like it. I could see why Brian said that. That sounds like anyone else's cathedral gong minute repeater. And I'm going to fire it up one more time real quick so you can just see the strikers in action. It's probably going to chime 1 o'clock, but hey, let's give it a shot. There it is. Black polished strikers as in the UN, but the rest of the movement is jaw-dropping. This watch, however, will break your budget to an extent the UN will not. So horses for courses. Just saying. Okay, speaking of horses for courses, I wanted to have a monster complication on this show that did not cost $1 million. For roughly the price of a Rolex Daytona, a little bit less and certainly less of a weight, you could get Geneva hallmark, manufacture movement, certified chronometer, 100-meter water resistant, and you could get that from Roger Dubuis, a brand that is a fully integrated manufacturer.
Propulsion chrono.
Hairsprings, balances, escapements, cases, bridges, plates, and wheels. They make it all. This is a model launched in 2011. It is the Roger Dubuis Pulsion Chronov, and as you can see, it features an interesting encompassing crystal that spans the entirety of the dial and the bezel. It's loomed, and beautifully so. On the dial side, you can see the reverse of the caliber 680 with glorious stippling or engine turning on that primary plate. You can also appreciate the fact that when you turn it over, as with all great watches, it becomes even more interesting. Now, caliber 680 is a manufacture movement micro rotor automatic. The watch is a COSC chronometer and it is Geneva hallmark, so you're getting both. It also features the world's only visible vertical clutch system. If you look adjacent to the balance, you can actually see the pincers of the vertical clutch lifting and dropping the engagement wheel, giving you the beauty of a lateral clutch, but the efficiency of a vertical clutch. Throw it on the wrist. This thing's an absolute monster. Again, we're talking just over $12,000 to own Geneva hallmark, COSC, manufacture everything from a brand that, backed by Richemont money, will be around forever to service. Now, though it's a 44mm watch, it's made of titanium, which means it's feather light, and entirely capped by that sapphire. It's almost impervious to scratches. The best of all possible worlds, and a value that simply pops the eyeballs. No, it's not cheap. No, nobody needs a luxury watch. But if you're into the best and you want to own it, and you, I don't know, perhaps rearrange some life priorities, leave the Harley Davidson for next year. For 12 grand, go for this.
Not a crystal I'd want to scratch, though.
Oh, I've never in my life, the only time in my life I've scratched a crystal was when I was wearing my Bond Seamaster.
I wouldn't even want to know what it would cost.
Here's the thing.
But it's magnificent, isn't it?
I crashed a bike and I chipped a sapphire. It was like 1/4 the size of a Tic Tac, the chip. If that's what it takes to chip a sapphire, I think you're good to go right there. But I will say this, we have something even tougher on the table if it doesn't satisfy your need for invulnerability.
It's great how the strap integrates into the case, too.
And it doesn't make it fit weird or unwieldy.
No.
Normally an integrated strap looks great, but you've got to have King Kong's own forearm.
Yeah.
Not with that watch.
No, because it's the way that the case sort of angles down.
No, it's a really good look. And I also have to say this, if you're considering, never mind the fact that this is Rolex Daytona money, if you're considering a Royal Oak offshore, get something that really is hand finished. That isn't, this is. That is my feeling right there. I think that's the ultimate value on the table today, although I will concede I have a soft spot for the aerospace. Let's talk about the big piece.
Okay, so here we have a Patek Philippe 10-day tourbillon. 10-day meaning the power reserve, tourbillon meaning the other complication with the watch. As with the 5216, the tourbillon escapement is on the back of the watch in order to protect the movement from UV rays. So this watch, I would say, has become, the 10-day has been in, or was in the Patek Philippe lineup for quite a long time. It's in a gondolo case, but like a regal gondolo case. I mean, the thing is truly a presence. It's almost Art Deco in nature, the way that it's stepped on the sides. Beautiful salmony copper dial, similar to the 5124G in terms of the color scheme. And I think always a beautiful and underappreciated reference by them.
So when this watch came out in 2003, it was the ultimate statement of refinement by Patek. First, because Patek went big and bold, doing what few others do. and paired a COSC certificate with a tourbillon. Most high-end watchmakers will sell a tourbillon with no explicit guarantee of accuracy. It looks good, and that's enough for them. Patek was bold and risked its reputation against watches costing basically 1/100th as much, and got a COSC certification for this watch. Now, it is Geneva hallmark because this is the original 5101P. Later on, these would have the Patek Philippe seal, and if you ask me which I prefer the earlier ones with the Geneva hallmark because they, and not the later ones, came with the COSC certificate. Now, you can see the case. It has a shaped movement inside. The 2820 in rectangular form was built for this case. Patek does not do that often. Think about all of the 240 and all of the 324 center rotor powered automatics. That movement is never built for the case. This is a tailoring of a movement just for this watch. Now the case here, it is based on the vintage reference 514. Do a quick Google search and you'll find out that Patek Philippe was very, very faithful to its history. It's the grille of a Lincoln Zephyr V12. It's the cap of the Chrysler building. Oh yeah. It's the cap of the Chrysler building on your wrist. Throw it on the wrist. It's about 51.7 millimeters across, which means it's broad, but it's not thick. It's less than 13 millimeters thick.
And you have a small wrist, and it doesn't seem overly large on your wrist.
No, you don't need to have a leg-sized wrist to enjoy this watch. And that's the great thing about it. It is a connoisseur's piece. The tourbillon is on the back. The size is wearable. The metal is not obviously precious. I will say one thing that was way ahead of the time, the salmon dial. It's held up well. It's arguably more attractive today and more desirable on the market than it was in 2003.
And, you know, I'd say today, now the watch has since been discontinued, but they came out with the 5200, which was a modified version of this movement with an 8-day power reserve, which I found out that the reason why it was 8 days and not 10 days is because of the power that was needed to power the rest of the watch.
That is correct. And as with the minute repeater, perpetual calendar, tourbillon we saw earlier, the bridge for the tourbillon carriage is entirely black polished. So you're getting what you pay for with this watch. You can also see gilded partridge eye style polish around the train. So this is a watch designed to evoke pocket watch era Patek Philippe.
Okay, we've got one more bad boy on the table here.
We got one that has nothing to do with pocket watches, but what a machine. Okay.
So I remember when this watch came out. This is the AMVOX. And what was so amazing to me about this watch is that A, they were way ahead of their time, but B, it required, I think it's little to no lubrication in order for the movement to operate. And when the watch first launched, there was tons of good positive feedback, many orders for the watch, but the brand actually couldn't deliver the watch for quite a long time after its release. They came out with the watch, they came out with the idea, they had a prototype, but actually building and delivering it was a different story. So the first version of the watch actually had red accents, this has blue, and I'll let you get into the mechanics of the watch, but the watch itself was glorious, fit very well. You had micro adjustments within the buckle itself and on the case, and just such a cool watch for the money.
Okay, a few thoughts. Brian is right. This watch was originally announced in 2010 JLC. JLC, with all the technical capability in the world, the largest source of movements within Richemont, took 4 years to deliver this multi-complication. Now, the model you see here came out 1 year later. Titanium with ceramic bezel, 300-piece limited edition, on paper 46.8 millimeters in diameter. It does not wear that way. It is feather light and ergonomically correct even on my skinny little wrist. Take a look at this.
This is such a you watch.
This thing is a me watch, and for about $36,000, this Richard Mille killer can be a you watch. Take a look at this dial. Digital jumping minutes, up to 60. Most chronograph registers go up to 30. This one goes up to 60. You're going to see it jump, which is a wonderful piece of horological theater. What you don't see in the moment is that the chronograph hours register goes up to 24. It's the only case I can think of a watch that does that. Now, because the crown is multifunction, it has a second column wheel. So you can select regular time setting, winding, or operation of the GMT capability. Now, there's a stub hour hand, and at the base of the dial, there's a 24-hour dial that gives you AM, PM for that stub secondary hour hand. The entire dial is skeletonized with a nickel anthracite coating. The watch is heat shield protected from scratches with the ceramic above the sapphire. There is a hacking lever on the side at 9 o'clock. Because the watch crown does not push or pull, it is a trigger. You have a separate hacking lever to stop the movement. Listen to these lugs. You won't find lugs like this.
It's incredible.
They are articulated and ratcheting, designed to make it easy for this watch to fit on a small wrist. And I'll show you one more time. 16 centimeter circumference wrist. No problem fitting this watch. Very comfortable. Light in sapphire, titanium, and ceramic. By the way, grade 5 titanium. But there's more. There is a power reserve scale that runs the upper half of the dial up to 65 hours. When it's fully wound, the upper half of the dial will glow. Turn it all over. There's more. Caliber, 780. 569 parts, 70 joules. Vertical clutch column wheel. It's actually mounted on a shock protector system, and for secondary shock protection, a full balance bridge with a free sprung index, so you can beat the hell out of this watch. Oh yes, there's more. There is a quick release system built into the caseback that allows you to easily remove, by pulling this trigger, easily remove the strap. You pull up the trigger, you remove the strap. The watch comes with a second strap. That strap is leather. It too is blue. Take a look at the pin buckle. You want to buy it as a separate component? This is why you get the whole watch and you don't buy things piecemeal. This would cost 4,000 Swiss francs as an accessory part. Double pin, quick release, so you can pull it off the strap just as you pulled the strap off the case. And remarkably, take a look at the case flank. There is an adjustment system and a cam built in that allows you to adjust short or long. There's a micro adjustment built into the pin.
This watch is incredible.
And it's 100 meters water resistant, so if you're looking for a sports watch to accompany you to the ends of the earth, this timepiece right here is going to be the one you will choose.
JLC should have advanced this line further than they did.
This is a monstrous watch, a multi-complication, an indestructible companion, and easily the best conversation piece at your next watch club meeting.
Let me see this thing.
You can also use it as, I don't know, basically a toy to play with during your corporate meetings to make them move faster. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's magnificent.
That would be $1 million watch if it said Richard Mille on the dial.
More.
There would have been
They're
race
not
car
making
drivers.
anything this complicated.
Yeah, there would have been race car drivers trotting it out. It would have been launched on the deck of a mega yacht in Monaco. Neither you nor I would have been invited to that launch, but you can invite yourself to this party.
Well, awesome. This was fun.
Brian, good to be back.
Good to be back. And guys, so this is going to be a regular broadcast now, correct?
That's correct. We are the team with the theme. We will have a new watch theme each week. Of course, comment below. Please subscribe. Let us know what theme you want to see for the next show. Until then, I'm Tim. He's Brian. Time out. And thanks for logging on.
Thanks for logging on.